In my book, The Real You Leading Your Life from Your Authentic Self, I have a chapter and it's called Multiplicity of Selves Healing Our Inner Family. About 15 or 20 years ago in my therapy practice, I discovered a way of working with people, and it was built upon a recognition inside myself as well as my clients. And I'll speak for myself. I have a wide range of different aspects inside of me that are all alive and awake and unique unto themselves. I have a childlike place. I have a wise elder or sage. I have a part of me that can be anxious and afraid. I have another part of me that gets excited about a new project. Um, so as humans, we all have that. And what I discovered 10 or 15 years ago was that what most people do is they identify with whatever they're currently experiencing as if that is all of who they are. So if they've just lost a parent, they're in deep grief. So they know themselves as I am in grief, but only part of them I realized is in grief. There's a whole other parts of them that are just maybe one part's just watching, another part that is grateful that they had the relationship with the person they lost. And so there can be a wide range of different aspects we have inside. Another example, if you're invited by your company to get promoted and to go fly across the country and live somewhere new with your family, and it's a huge increase in pay, and it actually, the job description has a lot of the components you've been waiting for, wanting to grow into: new leadership opportunities, new teamwork, the kind of work in a department that speaks more to you than the department you're in. So there's a part that's just thrilled and wants to go. And of course, when I work with people in this situation, they often have a place that says, I don't want to go anywhere. I'm very comfortable where I'm at. I don't want to pick up my family. I have no idea what's going to be like living there. I don't really know what that job's going to be like. No, I don't want to go. So what do you do when you have aspects inside, some of them diametrically opposed to each other? Now, I learned that what most people do is they toggle back and forth. And they kind of drive themselves crazy because one day they're ready to leave, and the next day they're not ready to take any action step whatsoever. So, what I discovered is it's possible to have a dialogue between two aspects of ourselves who are present simultaneously. They actually sit across from each other in two chairs. So, when you're in one chair and you're speaking for one aspect, you're imagining the other aspect is across from you. When people would do this dialogue process, it was astonishing because both aspects would get a voice. They both had a lot to say, and they weren't fighting to be able to win. They wanted to be heard, and they wanted to be heard by the other aspect. So the aspect that was afraid, it didn't want to be judged for being afraid. It didn't want to be called a coward or like, come on, get with the picture. It wanted the other aspect to know that it felt sensitive, it felt overwhelmed, it felt tender. So when it had its own voice and it could speak, and the other aspect, all it had to do was listen, it would get heard. And the other part, when you go over and switch chairs, the other aspect, let's say the one that's confident, ready to move, doesn't just start speaking about its reality. It responds to the one that's afraid. It says, wow, I see what you're talking about. I see how afraid you are. I understand this is really a concern. I'm not judging you. I'm not saying we're going to do what I want. Um, and I want to know how I can support you. I want to know what you need as we kind of review this decision, because we're both living this consciousness. And what do? We don't want to just fight about it and be separate, or one of them just override, which is very common. So, but then the part that's ready to adventurously leave says, I want to be heard. I want to talk. And then it gets to talk. It's like, wow, there's this aspect of the job, and there's new friends to meet. I've always wanted to go to the East Coast and all of that. And then the one that's afraid is listening to all of that, goes, And then it gets a chance to respond like, oh, wow. God, I see what you mean. Yeah, we have talked about that. They start actually becoming partners. They actually start understanding each other with empathy. And often creative solutions start occurring where, well, maybe we won't make the big decision to move. We'll take a scouting trip there and we'll check it out together and we'll check in with each other while we're there and see how it's going, see what you think, keep the dialogue going. When those two start partnering and the energy's flowing, it's a whole different person that is managing that life. It's integrated, it's powerful. And I find again and again, the shy part or the human part that could be afraid, it also in this relationship often has creativity, it has ideas, it has truth, and they start sharing resources with each other. And that's just one example of how dialogue works with multiplicity of selves. And it's magical. The energy shifts, they move to a whole different level of relating to their life situation. This can happen if you're considering a divorce. There can be a dialogue between one's masculine aspect and one's feminine aspect, which are very different, but they both live in the same consciousness. Whether you're a man or a woman, the masculine and feminine energies are independent of gender. They're both very real. I have a masculine aspect in me that's very central and powerful. And I have such a rich, astonishing feminine energy. Those two need to learn how to work together. They see the world differently. They experience the world differently. Being a facilitator of that kind of inner dialogue over the years, and I've become very, very masterful and competent at it because it's different and unique for each person I work with. It's a discovery process. It's not a methodology. Take steps one, two, three. And often people are a little reticent to do it. They feel self-conscious. Some people say, what does this mean? I'm schizophrenic? And I'd say, well, at least, because we have a lot of aspects inside. This is actually what's real. This is what's natural. And we're capable of facilitating a dialogue and integrating the different aspects of ourselves so they all are honored and heard, and decisions can be made with greater alignment and more consistent follow through. I notice things about how they are proceeding that might be a pattern, an unconscious pattern that actually gets in their way. For example, the part that's adventurous in the previous example that wants to go on and to get the promotion. It can actually start trying to convince the other one of the right thing to do, which is often a reflection of how they approach their process. They don't just meet themselves with compassion and empathy. And there's all kinds of psychological insight I've gathered over the years to help that process open up wide and people have powerful transformative shifts. So if you're drawn to consider being a client and doing work in this way, I'd welcome hearing from you and talking about that possibility. I also want to say that I happen to be tremendously passionate about working with couples. I've done that for 40 plus years because the process, interestingly enough, is very similar because you have two different people, two different backgrounds, two different life experiences, two cultural beginnings, often different religious orientations. They're trying to partner together. And typically, one of them will try to dominate the other one as a pattern, being human. They haven't really learned how to listen to their partner, discover where their partner is different than them, and learn from their partner. That's when a relationship becomes really, really rich and open up, is when you realize there's two realities. Let's say if I'm doing marriage counseling, there's two marriages. And when each partner can cherish and tend to not only their own process, but their partner's process, that opens up levels of intimacy that most couples have never experienced. And it's powerful. And it's not about winning or it's not about being right or wrong. It's about sharing power. It's very, very rich to work with couples and open them up to new levels of intimacy that often they've prayed for, but they haven't known how to go about inviting it in. And I know how to help a couple open up in that way, which my goal when I work with a couple is to help them open to a new level of relationship, marriage, beyond anything that they've experienced thus far in their lives. And that's readily available to couples. If you find that these videos are of a rich nature and they touch you or they inspire you to think in a different way or look through new eyes, I encourage you to visit my website at gavinjtaylor.com, and you'll learn more about the work that I do, what people say about it, how you can participate. I work online. I have for over a decade with people all around the world. The biggest ingredient for us to be able to do valuable work together is that we have a depth of rapport and in the heart. And that's what lubricates and invites the magic of transformation in the counseling process. Thanks for taking the time to learn more about some of what I've been describing here as unique ways to approach life that we don't typically encounter. I've really invested my entire life in continuing to open wide to see life in new ways. So thanks for listening. It's a pleasure to share with you.